And pitching for the Pirates this afternoon, number 28, Steve Blass, warming up in the bullpen.
And on the mound, Steve Blass. And in Game 3 in Pittsburgh, he twirled a 3-hitter against the Orioles. Frank Robinson had 2 hits and 4 trips. And one of those was a home run, and that was the only run that Blass allowed the Orioles that day. And I guess when people think back over this 1971 World Series, I think a lot of people will say that Blass, perhaps more than anyone else, turned the series around. With Buford at first base and none out in the first inning, he attempted to bunt and popped out to the pitcher, Blass. There goes Buford. They've got him hung up. And he is out at second base. He broke too soon, and the alert Blass just cut him down. But no one expected the Pirate pitching to be what it has been in this series. Magnificent.
Keep your eyes on him. He pitched a 3-hitter at Pittsburgh to beat the Orioles. He's pitched a 4-hitter so far today, and he's leading 2-1. There's a drive up the middle. Hernandez in back of the bag. He's got him. Jackie Hernandez. Look at Blass. Blass has pitched the Pirates to the World Championship. The Pirates, 2 games down, have come back.
Steve Blass, who pitched such a great game. Steve, I know you just can't express yourself emotion-wise. You're all wrung out.
I don't know what to say. This is the biggest thrill that could ever happen. I don't believe it. From a skinny kid from Falls Village, Connecticut.
Yeah, well, not so skinny out there. You showed them all there was to show them, Steve.
Are we on now?
We are on.
We are on.
We've been on.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, my pleasure. I just have such wonderful memories of Falls Village and growing up here. And they say you can't come back home. That's wrong. You can come back home time after time after time. And I had I would say, an idyllic childhood here. I felt like I was Tom Sawyer. I didn't paint white fences, but I mowed every lawn in Falls Village with my hand mower, my reel mower, for $1 each. I fed the mink over at Arvidsson's Mink Ranch so we could ride the horses that we didn't know were being killed for the mink food. But if we watered and fed the mink, they would let us ride the horses that are being bought in. And so I just wandered all around the streets of Falls Village, and it was wonderful. It was a different time, of course. It was back in the late 40s, early 50s, where Mom would say, all right, in the summertime, I'll see you at dinner. And you just wandered all over the place. Jacob's Garage, when we used to have the big snowstorms, I remember going up there and asking Les Jacobs, can I clean off the cars because of the snow, because they had to show the cars. I worked the hardest 8 hours I ever worked in my life, brushing off those cars for 8 hours, and I think I got $4. But hey, $4. That wasn't a bad thing. I've never worked so hard in my life. But down from us, between us and town, Betty Mansfield had a little produce stand right on Route 7, so it got a lot of traffic. And I asked her if I could sell for her. She needed somebody to just go out and sit in the stands and sell the apples. And she had the various types of apples, and I couldn't remember the various types. And every darn one of them that I saw was a Macintosh. there might have been everything else. And I was an entrepreneur. I was a Tom Sawyer. I off the back of comic books, I would send away for these seeds, the flower seeds and the vegetable seeds, and I would sell them to get my first BB gun, a Red Ryder BB gun. And I would go door to door, and that's what I did. I was a little businessman. I would mow lawns. I would sell seeds, flowers and vegetable seeds. Sold apples for Betty. And I was always busy. As long as I had my bicycle, I could make it work. I could make it work. Oh, I also, we had up on the Battle Hill, we had red raspberries that grew. And I would go down to the community service and buy the little wooden baskets, and I would pick those berries and sell them for $1. So that was another job I had.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I found things to do, and I had something else on my mind. But I didn't want to forget about the berries either, because we sold those, and yeah, that was it. I was just all around town looking for things to do, and yeah, did some babysitting. Yeah, I was a busy boy. I always wanted to be busy. What's next? Lived a life of anticipation. What's the next adventure? What's the next thing to do?
Good for you.
Yeah. I also worked summers. I had a summer job with the Howe farm. Mrs. Howe, who used to read to us here in the library, was married to Frank Howe, who had a big, up on BB Hill, if you kept going up. I worked for him in summers pitching hay, and I still believe that throwing those hay bales up on the wagon never hurt me in terms of upper body strength. Vivid memory, wonderful memories of a childhood in a small town that had big dreams.
Did you always dream of becoming a baseball?
Absolutely. It's all I ever wanted to do is play ball. We lived up on Route 7, and there was a little kind of an out barn in back of us, and I would, every day in the summer, I'd fabricate these major league games, just throwing a ball against that barn, and where the different bounces would go, with different scoring rules, and just obsessed with sports in general and baseball in particular. And then, of course, playing ball up at Lee Kellogg School and grammar school, we had a very unique field in that it was not level, it was angled up like this, so it was hard to get from home plate to first base. We threw a lot of guys out at first base, but once you got to first, it was straight across to second, and once you got there, you were running downhill to third, so everybody was able to steal third base if they were good enough to get to second. So it was a very unique baseball field. But that's how I got kind of started and played at Lee Kellogg, and then played in the Babe Ruth League up in Canaan, and then into high school at Housatonic.
You got signed in 1964?
I got signed out of high school in 1960.
Right out of high school?
Right out of high school, went to the minor leagues. Made my way all through the minor leagues, and then came to the Pirates in the major leagues in 1964. That was my rookie year in the big leagues, and wound up spending 10 years in the big leagues, and pitching on a team that had enough talent to have us win this World Series ring in 1971, which is what you dream about. It's the greatest thing that can happen, is to be on a team that's good enough to be in the World Series. So coming from Falls Village to pitching in the World Series, quite a journey, quite a journey.
Let's go back to your childhood in Falls Village. What are some of the stories that you remember? Like, did you ever do anything outrageous on Halloween?
Oh, goodness. Halloween was one of the greatest, because we would dress up, of course, and we'd go out and make the rounds of all the houses. We knew that there were good houses. And then we'd come back and change costumes and do it again. So we doubled down all the time. We lived up on Battle Hill. We're up on Route 7. Right on Route 7, the top of the hill.
Yeah.
We rented a place from Lloyd Brinton. And then we moved down over across the tracks when you go through the underpass going toward the high school, that first house on the right.
First house on the right.
Yeah. But a story about the house we rented on Battle Hill, because of the baseball, semi-attached out and back to the house was an artist studio. of which one whole side of the thing was glass. And my buddy and I knocked out every pane of glass, and my dad had to replace the cost of that. And I will always remember being about, I don't know, 12 years old, and he came home from work and found out, and he said, "You go out and cut me a switch," and he beat my ass. I didn't break any more windows after that. I also dated every girl in Falls Village, and that's my religious time of my life, because whichever church that particular girl belonged to, I would join. So Sally Jensen might have belonged to one of the churches, Nancy Piscini and Patty Fraley, and so that was probably the most religious time of my life, chasing after those girls and going to whatever church socials they might have had. And we had square dances up at Lee H. Kellogg School, and it was a great time.
Did you meet your wife here?
I met my wife at the high school.
The high school.
But I also had a background because we used to have Grange, and we all belonged to the Grange. And you had the various things, your gatekeeper or this position, and I became the master. And Karen was the master over Sharon. And through a brochure that I saw that listed the pictures of the different masters around the 6 area towns, I remember seeing her picture in that brochure, and that's how I knew who she was. And when we got to high school, after I had met and been rejected by several girls, I met Karen, and the rest is history. We've been married 54 years plus 4 years of bad behavior in high school. So I met her that way. But that was the gathering place up above Hamsey's store. That was kind of where we had that's where we had Grange, and we would have the Christmas parties or the Valentine's Day parties. And my mother made me sing up there one time, my first performing gig. I sang, "All I Want for Christmas Is My 2 Front Teeth." And I got up in front of people, I don't know how the hell I did it, but I got up and sang that song in front of those people at a Christmas party. But a lot of the parties and social events were held up in that room above the it was a combination plumbing shop, Hamsey store, and the post office. That was the strip right there. Right. And above that was the big party room.
Today that's the senior center.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But baseball was the obsession.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's great.
Wanted to do that. And I don't know if I could have ever done anything else, because I can't change a light bulb. My dad was a very talented plumber. My Uncle Bill could build anything, was an artist. They skipped a generation, so I can tell you all about throwing curveballs, but they can tell you all about building things and using their hands and all that.
Bill Blass is your uncle?
Yep, Uncle Bill.
Yeah, his artwork is all over town.
Yep, yeah, and I have some of it in my home.
Good.
Yeah, and he was my hero, because he was just 3 or 4 years older than I am, my Uncle Bill. And he was my hero growing up. He'd take me fishing, and he didn't have much to do with baseball, and I didn't know much about fishing. Quick story,
sure.
Down by the powerhouse on the river, he took me for a fishing lesson, and we borrowed a pole from me. He had his own, he's a tremendous fisherman. He was going to teach me how to fish, so we're down by the powerhouse, and he was giving me the casting lessons. And he said, "You just got to be flexible with your wrist and just kind of throw it out there." And my first throw took the pole right out with it into the river, and we went home. And he tried once again to take me down to South Canaan to fish in one of the brooks there. And we left on our bicycles at 8 o'clock in the morning with our lunch under our arms on the bicycles. And we left at 8 and sat down and started fishing at 9 o'clock. Bill looked around, and I had already ate both lunches. So I wasn't the greatest fishing companion in the world, but he was everything to me. And Uncle Bill's still my hero, and he took time with me and helped me kind of grow up. Yeah. And also helped me never to take up smoking, because on one of our fishing trips he gave me a cigarette, I took a couple puffs, I threw up, and I've never smoked.
Good for you.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, yeah.
But he was the man for me. He was the man. Yeah. So Falls Village is great. My Uncle Bill and I, during the summer, we knew all the people that had the gardens. And his sister, Skip, who lived right next to the firehouse, on occasion, we would go around to a garden late at night, pick some corn, we'd take it back, and Skip would cook it for us. He thought that was great. It was like Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. So we had the run of the town. We had our first TV experience because there weren't too many TVs, but we used to go down to where Skip lived, right next to the firehouse. There was apartments there, and we would go up. Miles Blodgett had one of the first TV sets, and we would watch Howdy Doody and Eddie Fisher, Coke Time, and we watched boxing and wrestling. Wrestling came on a Saturday afternoon, wrestling from Marigold Gardens in Chicago, professional wrestling, and Canadian football. Some of my first memories of TV, and that was a big deal to go up there and get a chance to watch some television. I got in my first fight. I don't think I've ever been in another real fight. Steve Schneider, my catcher, he was one of the toughest kids in the thing, and I remember he punched me in the stomach. I did something to him. And I said, well, I don't want any more of that. And I remember he got me good. I said, I don't think I want to get in any more fight. I was a smart ass. I made some smart ass remark to him, and he let me have it. And that was the end of that. I started showing him a lot more respect.
Passenger trains.
Oh, that's another story. I used to take the train from Falls Village to Canaan to get my hair cut. And you could go. I catch the train on Saturday mornings for a quarter. You could go up to Canaan, and Mario 7 had the barber shop up until he had it forever and ever and ever. Yeah. And that was a big deal for me going up to Canaan, because I could go up there and get my hair cut and come back on the train. And there was a couple of times Uncle Bill and I would just walk up the tracks to Canaan. And I used to hitchhike, when you could hitchhike, to be a bat boy for the town team from Falls Village. I'd go up, and I would be their bat boy, and some of the games they would be in Canaan, and some of them they'd go to Lakeville or Sharon or Millerton, and they would take me along, and after the games they'd all stop at some beer house and go in and start drinking beer. I couldn't go in because I was 10 or 11 years old. But they would bring me Coca-Colas. I drank more Coca-Cola as a kid than anybody in this whole area, because especially after they won an away game, they would celebrate even a little bit more. But these guys would play Sundays, and Bob Harris was a guy up in Canada. He passed the hat along the way, and I was just delighted to be their bat boy. That was a big deal for me to come up and be the bat boy for the Canaan town team.
How old were you?
10, 11, 12. I'd hitchhike up to Canaan from Fallsville. And everybody knew you, and you could hitchhike. It was safe. We all hitchhiked around. And be the bat boy, and then somebody dropped me off back home. And I just love coming home, because we've gone through all these stories. It was a wonderful childhood. Mom was supportive, Dad was supportive. My grandpa was the model for the doughboy in Canaan. The statue of the World War I soldier up there right across from Collins Diner. He put on his old World War I uniform and modeled for that doughboy statue. So there's a heritage here. It's a good place to be from, and I just love coming home.
Has it changed?
No, Falls Village has not changed a lot. I loved reading. Maybe Mrs. Howell helped with that. read and read and read, and I still maintain by reading. When I talk to kids now, I said, you know, talk to trying to stay in school and all those things. I said, read, because you learn so much from reading. And it helped me with my vocabulary. And what I do now as a baseball analyst, there's a guy doing play-by-play, and you want to get in quickly to make your point and get out because the game's going on. A strong vocabulary is important because you can use words efficiently. And so I still believe that by doing a lot of reading and learning words, get in, make your point, and get out, because you can't intrude on the big game. That's the one lesson I learned from a guy that helped me. He said, don't get in the way of the game. So by having a good vocabulary, you can get in, make your quick point, and get out so the game can continue and not be intruded upon. When I talk to kids, I try to emphasize that. Racking my brains to think of more, and I'll be driving back to Pittsburgh and think of more stories, but we've covered a good bit of ground.
Good, good.